Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Can everyone hear me?
It's probably not on.
It's on. How do I click off? On?
It's on mute. Negative.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Everyone can hear me? Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsan ila yawm al-din ma ba'd. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Allahumma anfa'na bima 'allamtana وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. Respected brothers, elders and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and foremost for giving us the tawfiq to be here, mashallah, in the masjid of Allah Azza wa Jal, to talk about a very important topic. I'd like to request everyone, inshallah, mashallah, these slides, it takes some time and effort. If everyone can come a little closer, I don't know how easy we can see from the back. It's sort of blurry as it is, right? We're not HD, what can we do, right? If everyone can come closer, inshallah, you should entertain your guests. Make your guests feel a little happy. Came in the morning, right? Tomorrow. Everyone can come a little closer, inshallah. Our elders on the chairs is fine, inshallah. No, inshallah. This topic obviously is extremely vital and critical to our modern time. Because as we heard from Allah and we heard from Asadullah, that the fitna and the corruption of liberalism has pervaded into every corner of society. And it's unfortunate to ourselves that by the end of this talk, I hope we realize how indoctrinated we really are. Because we are living in this paradigm, in the model of liberalism, and we don't even realize. Sorry, one second. We're sticky. Okay. We don't even realize about how much we have been embedded into this philosophy and how much has been engraved in our minds and in our souls. It's become very dangerous. May Allah protect us, inshallah. So keeping this in mind, I want to make a quick disclaimer before we get into it. Because mashallah, you heard so many different things from so many different speakers, mashallah. First and foremost, if you need questions, please inshallah, of course, you can email your questions to ask.projectihya.com. Just type it in, inshallah. I want to make a quick disclaimer. Whatever we talk about today is not to say that everything that liberalism promotes is bad. Because you'll find that many things coincide with what Islam says. Right? There are certain things about freedom of speech, and certain things that we say that everyone is born free. Muslims understand that reality, right? Muslims understand that reality. But we have certain objections because the way the liberal got there is incorrect. We understood it because Allah Ta'ala told us. We understood it because Allah Ta'ala told us. But the liberal did not get there because God told him. The liberal got there because he told himself from other ways, which we'll talk about today, inshallah. Because our main goal is to break down the assumptions and principles of liberalism. And I hope to do that, inshallah, in the short amount of time that we have. So we have, inshallah, a very short presentation before everyone. First and foremost, social political liberalism. Then we're going to talk about this happiness that liberalism wants. It is the goal of liberalism, so that people can be happy. Then we're going to talk about desires, because you have desires. And then we're going to talk about human rights. And then finally, we're going to talk about what it means to be a human. Right? They're all important topics. We ask Allah Ta'ala that He benefits us and for everyone. So first and foremost, although this is like doing Ihya to a dead horse, right? We talked about liberalism so many times. I didn't come to the state of Georgia to go and talk about conservatism, being a conservative or being a Republican versus Democrat. That's not the liberalism we're talking about here. I think Maulana Tufail mentioned that very beautifully. I think Maulana Asadullah mentioned it very beautifully. To not make Ihya of a dead horse, and not to tell you I came here to endorse, Trump or something, or came here to tell you that Biden is wrong or whatever. That's not the goal here. The goal here is to understand liberalism. Okay? It is a social and political philosophy. I'm very happy to be here, mashallah, in Georgia. After I heard about your gun laws, mashallah, tabarakallah, increase you, mashallah. May Allah increase your Second Amendment, mashallah. I'm much happier than Massachusetts, that's for sure, mashallah. May Allah increase you all, ya Rabbil Alameen. Having said that, the goal of this discussion is the philosophy of liberalism. Okay, what is this philosophy? Like John Stuart Mill said, the only freedom which deserves the name is that of pursuing our own good in our own way. He says the only freedom that which deserves the name of freedom is that pursuing our own good in our own way. In other words, you decide what you want in life, and your life, you will be happy as long as you can pursue whatever good you want to do. So subhanAllah, you have this one dream house. You want to buy this $1 million house, or $1.5 million house. Or this kid has been dreaming about this one Tesla he wants. He wants his Tesla car. Tesla now Hami, or he wants his car, whatever. He wants his car so badly. So then what does liberalism tell you? Your life, you can go ahead, pursue it in any way. Of course, you only have one condition though. Pursue whatever you want. The only condition is you can't harm anyone. You can't harm anyone. Okay? So to maximize a person's ability to attain their own good is the goal of liberalism. To understand that you go and pursue your happiness, whatever way it is, to go and do it. Sometimes liberalism comes in the form of a greater number. Sometimes it comes in consideration of the community. Sometimes it comes in consideration of the individual. Different forms of liberalism. I can't talk about every strand today because that's way too long. But the main thing I want you to understand, the galaxy of liberalism understands that we want to maximize people's ability to attain their own good, inshallah. That's the whole goal, right? Does that make sense? The individual ought to be free to do as he wishes, unless he harms others. This is the only condition that is there. Do whatever you want, get whatever car you want, drive the Mercedes, whatever, that's fine. Marry Rebecca, whatever, no problem. The only thing you can't do, can't harm anyone in the process. Okay? So understanding this, right, this is like so embedded in our society. Like this, what is this on? Which soda? Obey your thirst. You can talk. It's not a khutbah, you can talk. Which soda is this? Sprite, right? Just do it. What is that? Nike. All the various different slogans that you'll find in the society that we live in is very much based off this idea of individualism. Obey your thirst. Do whatever you want. Just do it. Get it done. Forever 21. Whatever it is. Just do you. Get your stuff done. That's what life is about. That's the whole goal of liberalism. So it pushes people towards this individualism. That as long as you as an individual are happy, it's all good to go. You're fine. Okay? And this is the way we understand. And we can talk about this in detail, of course, about individualism. But another day, inshallah. You decide for yourself. As long as you're pursuing your desires, you'll be happy. Okay? Now, I gave you the nice PG examples of the house and the Tesla. And maybe the haram Rebecca was a little bit too haram for this. Right? There are certain examples which are nice. But what did liberalism do? It tells you don't need God. You don't need society. You don't even need a spouse. Why would you even get married to make you happy? Right? You really don't need anything. Whatever makes you happy, whatever you're pleased by, that's good enough. Does that make sense? So what do they allow? So it allows that people, they can follow whatever desires, whichever way the desires leads them. If they like a woman, that's good, mashallah, tabarakallah. One guy came to me the other day, said, Shaykh, I have a big problem. I said, what's your problem? He looked so perishan, he looked so worried. He said, what is your problem? He said, Shaykh, I'm very much attracted to women. I said, mashallah, tabarakallah, that's good. That's good, right? Isn't that good? You all should be attracted to women, right? I said, subhanAllah, as an imam, we deal with such crazy cases these days. To hear that a guy likes a girl, that's a good thing. He said, but I have trouble looking at them. I'm always looking at them. I said, that's a bad thing. We can curb that. You being a man, that's normal. That means you're functioning properly, mashallah. The thing is that liberalism, it encourages you to follow your desires. If they're good, fine. What else can it allow you to do? A woman can be dissatisfied with being that she finds herself in her natural gender, what her gender tells her to do, being a mother, being a housewife, making sure the house, right? Like my wife said very beautifully, when we went to get her green card renewed, we had all the paperwork, right? And I'm sorry if I keep going on tangents, I'm a little tired, so this keeps me awake. So we went in, mashallah, to the green card office, and subhanAllah, we put in the paperwork, and the green card officer, he goes and says, okay, what's your job? I said, I'm an imam. And then he goes and says to my wife, he says, do you have a job? And she says, yes. And I look at her, because I think she doesn't understand, right? So I look at her and say, he asked you, so I told her, he asked you, do you have a job? Right? And then she goes, I do have a job, right? And I go and I'm bugging out, because I wrote on the tax return that I have income. And what does she have? Zero income, right? And so I'm like bugging out. We're gonna get like arrested or something, right? They're gonna think I robbed her from Bangladesh to bring her here or something, right? So we're trafficking type of issue I'm gonna get into, right? Imam, right? Shakeel Rahman on Fox News next time, right? Maybe in Georgia TV, whatever. So in any case, so then she goes and says something so beautiful. She goes and says, I do have a job. I'm the housemaker. I take care of the house. And then mashallah, the officer himself said, yes, that is a 24/7 job. To make sure the house is kept well, it's a 24/7 job. Wallahi, I could never do what my wife does. Because she's taking care of the 3 kids, I can be here before you giving a bayan. Right? May Allah preserve and protect our sisters, Ya Rabbi. So in any case, it can allow a person, a woman, to desire what men have, which leads to feminism. Liberalism is the umbrella on which feminism is underneath. Liberalism is the umbrella in which feminism is underneath. find? If a person doesn't desire women anymore, they desire the same gender or the same sex, it actually leads to homosexuality. Liberalism, the umbrella of liberalism, underneath it is feminism and homosexuality. Even beyond that is what? You can already see the conversation. In desiring to be another gender than one's own as well. This is also underneath liberalism. Liberalism is a very toxic idea because when you allow people to go towards their own, whatever their passions are in life, whatever it is, then you allow a person to become a feminist, to desire what men have, to desire their own gender in terms of having relations, or to decide to be someone else completely. You don't even need to be a man or a woman anymore. You could be a fox, right? Or Wolfarian, like the other guy said the other day, right? Some weird stuff, which we'll get to later on, inshallah. Not right now. My main point is to tell you that this is a big problem. Okay? We sometimes, unfortunately, kind of ascribe ourselves to liberal ideas without realizing the logical end of liberalism. Because the end is very dangerous for humanity, which we'll get to. But let's first break down the first thing that we want to talk about, which is happiness. What is the goal of liberalism again? Can anyone remind me? What is the goal of liberalism? To maximize pleasure so you can become happy. The whole thing is that your happiness is key. This is one of the main things, okay? Like John Stuart Mill mentions it, right? His whole thing is being optimistic, right? That people can create their greater happiness. As long as you can pursue your happiness, you'll be happy, okay? So we find that it's something that they always talk about. Life, property, and happiness, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They're always thinking about this goal. You gotta be happy, okay? Now let's just think about it, rationally speaking. Just rationally speaking. We won't bring Quran and Sunnah to the table, because if I speak to a brother or sister who's very much enamored with liberalism, they're not going to listen to Quran and Sunnah from me. So I have to explain it reasonably to them. Okay? So the goal is again to make them happy, like you all told me, mashallah. Okay? Now I ask you a question. The question is, should we pursue things just because they make us happy? What do you think? Yes or no? Should we pursue things just because they make us happy? No. Because why? Because there are good things, again, like I told you, the PG ones, and then the rated R ones, and things which are just completely wrong for humans. Let's give an example. Are there certain desires that are harmful? What would you say? 100%. Let's take an example. It's not. Things are like shooting ladders, right? Whatever. Okay. Gambling. Gambling is harmful. If a person says, I love gambling. Oh, I love the casinos. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. This guy's so excited about that, right? That idea of going towards Vegas, what would you tell this person who's gambling? Although he's pursuing his happiness, is that good for him? It's bad. Everyone will agree it's bad because he's harming his life. What about smoking? A person says smoking is good for themselves. He is a rational human and he is an adult actor and he can make his decisions. But if he chooses to smoke, what would you tell this person? Is it good or bad for him? It's bad. What about another one? Drinking. Same exact thing. Let's take intoxicants. The amount of damage that a person can get from intoxicants, right? And then let's take even more extreme examples. You bring these examples before someone, brother or sister, when we talk about liberalism, and you're talking about people pursuing their own happiness, my question to you is, you're okay with the person being homosexual or LGBT, but are you okay with two consenting adults, two consenting brothers, having incest with one another? Astaghfirullah. Something in the heart kind of shuddered when we thought about it. That how could I ever allow a brother and a brother to be together? SubhanAllah, something disgusting, something bad, and the list can go on. We can go towards necrophilia. We can go to even worse examples. The idea that there are certain things in life that everyone agrees is not good for you. Even if you're a rational actor, you have a control and ability over your own life. People will say what you're doing is something wrong. There's something wrong there. Okay? And if we can take it to the worst example, which is suicide. Because a person can decide what makes me happy in life is to do what? To take my own life. What would you say? Is that a good thing? But in the framework of liberalism, it's hard to argue this point, that if the person wants to do it because it makes him happy, then why don't you let him do it? Okay? So the argument that the liberal will bring in return is this one. They'll say that there are people sometimes don't know harm and happiness for themselves. Some people don't know if this will make them happy or it will harm them. Does that make sense? People don't know for themselves if it will make them it will be harmful or make them happy. Okay? And I want you to understand this and use it against them. Okay? Some people clearly do not know what is helpful or harmful for oneself. Okay? So what do you tell the person to do? When you see a person who has suicidal thoughts, may Allah protect all of us. I mean, you can't say I mean, right? So what happens if you meet a person who has suicidal thoughts? What do you tell them? Where should they go? Really? No one has any idea where to send them? The psycho, you want to put them in the psycho? You put them in a straight jacket? What the heck is this? I think this is a video game or something. I don't know what's going on. You want to, we're in the right place. Get them counseling, right? Bring them to someone who has a little bit more wisdom, right? Go to someone wiser. Go to someone wiser, okay? And so then what happens is they might go to one psychologist. They go to Mullah Shakeel and he totally sucks at his job. So they say, forget about Maulana, he's a terrible guy. I don't want this psychologist. So they go to another psychologist who's probably even wiser than him, okay? That could probably offer him better help, okay? And then I would say that could there be someone wiser in life than that person? Would you agree that there could be someone smarter than that psychologist? Right? What about if we send it to the third one? Can there be someone even wiser than that? 100%. Where does wisdom all go to? Where does wisdom all end at? وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran very beautifully, and above everyone with knowledge is someone more knowledgeable. The beautiful argument against liberalism in this perspective of harm and happiness is that you remind them and tell them that look, when you and I say that there are harmful things for humanity and they can't make decisions for themselves, we argue as Muslims, congratulations, we have the one who is the most knowledgeable and most wise. If you go towards him, you'll find what makes humans happy and what is harmful for humans. Does that make sense for everyone? As a Muslim, you use the principles against them. You tell them, mashallah, tabarakallah, brother. As a rational human being, you and I should both agree that God is the most wise, and He knows what is good for humans and what is bad for humans. Okay? And so again, this is all because of the fact. The main thing is this: how is a person deciding? I want to ask everyone: how is a person deciding that something is good for me or bad for me? How are you making the decision? What is the organ that's helping you? Which organ in your body is telling you that this is a good thing? You guys are all disgusting. I already know what organ popped up in your head. Okay, the guys with the rational brains. Which is the organ that helps you out? The rational brain. Sometimes you guys don't think with your proper head. We all have to forgive you guys. Mashallah. Okay, in any case. Okay, the aql, the brain that you have, which is the organ that you decide with, right? You decide that this is good for me and this is bad for me. Does it have all knowledge about everything? No. What information does it have? It has a certain amount of information, and that information is limited. Okay? And so this is the problem with this liberal understanding. Human beings can't make the decision for themselves, because the only way for them to decide what truly makes them happy is that they need to know about all the happiness in all the universe. And they need to know all the harms in all the universe. And then they need to make a decision that this is good for me or this is bad for me. Now, can any human do that by themselves? Absolutely impossible. We don't know what is harmful. We don't know what truly doesn't cause harm to other people. This is the thing. Liberalism tells you the harm principle. You can do it as long as you don't harm others. You can do it as long as you don't harm others. Do you really know what's harmful in that? Okay? I already gave you examples from before. Suicide, drinking, smoking, etc. Okay? A human being is a very ajib creature Allah's made. Very strange creature. Why? Because by merely existing, you are harmful. By merely existing, you are harmful. How is that so? You come home one day, you see your 30-year-old son. Okay, already it's raising a red flag. All you fathers, mashallah, if I were to tell you that your 26-year-old daughter is at home and she's sitting down and she just, alhamdulillah, like just enjoying sitting down on the couch, would you as men feel anything bad about your 26-year-old daughter being at home, just sitting down and just relaxing? Would you feel anything bad about it? I think as a human, you like that your daughter's at home. Right? I like that my daughter's at home. And as a father, no matter what age my daughter gets, if she wants to stay with her father, I'm more than happy to keep my daughter with me, right? What about if you come home? Just keep that in mind. What happens if you come home and you see your 26-year-old son at home, just sitting down on the couch? What do you feel immediately? Yo, what are you doing home? Go get a job. What are you doing home? Go get a job. You think you can just exist? You're harming. I pay rent so you can be like subhanAllah. The idea that a boy thinks I can just sit home and play video games. Someone has to pay for your electricity. Someone has to pay for your water. Someone has to pay for your food. By you just being here, you're causing harm to someone else. That's the reality of the matter. By you just existing, you are breathing in good oxygen and taking out and putting out CO2. Okay? You're putting out CO2. Is CO2 good for humanity? It's not. You're actually just being a detriment by just existing. That space that you have in that apartment by not getting a job and just staying with your parents and doing nothing, that's harmful. Men, please. Allah put the burden of finances on you guys. Just remember that. It's an amanah in front of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So keeping that in mind, even Jainism. They don't know about Jainism? Yeah. So I one time gave a bayan in front of Jainists. They invited me. I have no idea why they didn't invite a Muslim, right? Because their idea is that the universe and everything is cyclical. Everything just goes in cycles. It's all eternal, right? The universe is eternal, all that stuff. I said that, I came in there, I gave them the most crazy idea ever. You know what I told them? I said, guys, I want you to know as a Muslim, that what we understand is that nothing existed at one time, and then Allah brought it into existence. These kids were so shocked. They were like, oh, you told me that nothing existed at one time. They're like, oh my God, right? A Jainist to them is that the universe and everything that we're in, we're not supposed to harm anything. They have the harm principle to the extreme. That's why the monks from Jainism don't wear clothes. Okay, why don't they wear clothes? Who wear the clothes? Someone else could, right? And the highest level of Jainism is that a person starts abandoning even food and drink. And even more extreme forms go to a person walking into the forest and just dying. Because that is the best way to exist in the universe. SubhanAllah, this stuff is crazy. May Allah give us afiyah and, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I hope you thank Allah Ta'ala because you, Alhamdulillah, have a working model, a beautiful model, perfect model, which is Islam. So may Allah Ta'ala, grant us that understanding about how great Islam is. So the burden of your pleasure, whatever pleasure it is going to be placed on society. When people say the harm principle, we argue in return, we say that brother or sister, in reality, we don't know how much harm we actually cause to humanity, number one. Number two is that whatever pleasures you want in life, someone has to pay for it. Someone has to pay for it. The electricity, the water, the food, everything. Someone has to give some money towards it. There's no way around it, There is someone who's funding this project of your pleasure. And you are causing harm because of it. Because while you're enjoying and playing your Roblox and your Minecraft or your Fortnite or whatever, there's a homeless man sitting on the street somewhere and wishing he could have the home that you have. There's someone in the world who's suffering because you're enjoying. Keep that in mind and thank Allah Ta'ala for the blessing bestowed upon us. Alhamdulillah. This is just one step into liberalism. Let's take a deeper step. What is this deeper step? When John Stuart Mill said, liberty consists in doing what one desires. We heard it from Maulana Asadullah very beautifully about David Hume. He argued this, okay? Liberalism tells you, I should desire things because I have desires. I should desire things because I have desires. What is wrong with this? I should because I have. You want me to give you an example? Is this clear? I have the desire to kill someone. Maybe you want to kill me because you're very upset at the bed or something. I don't know. Okay? You have the desire to kill me. Should you do it? MashaAllah. You guys can talk, MashaAllah. I know it's a long day. May Allah reward you all, MashaAllah. Sitting for this type of topics is important. We have to get our ideas in the right mind, inshallah. You should not. Why? Because this is what the whole thing is. How could it be, like David Hume said, just because it is doesn't mean it ought to be. Just because I have doesn't mean I should. Okay? Just because you desire something, should you do it? This is not, we just talked about like 15 other examples of drinking and smoking and different things that a person should not do just because they desire them. Okay? If people kill or steal, it does not mean that we should. Okay? I'll give you an example. People unfortunately argue about the gauging. And nature.com probably did one of the most extensive studies about the gauging. Because what do people who have homosexual tendencies, what do they argue? They say that it's innate, it's nature. I can't avoid it, right? Because it's put in my genes. Well, nature.com did like one of the most extensive studies, looking over 500,000 genes. And after examining so many different participants and so many different genes, they came to the conclusion, there is no gauging. There is no gauging, okay? But let's say something is genetic. Like gambling, okay? Certain studies have shown that gambling is linked to a gene that is passed through generations, okay? Now I ask you, just because there are some genetic tendencies for a person, like the genetic tendency in the Bengali community is that the father has to beat the son, okay? Just because my dad beat me up, does that mean I have to beat him? You know what I'm saying? Okay? Just because it's in your genes, does that mean you have to do it? No, right? If, for example, someone says, honey, I'm sorry I cheated with that girl, but it's on my testosterone. I have testosterone. What can I do? God made me like this. This is absolutely absurd. Just because you find the gene, does that mean you become someone who's no longer responsible? You have no more morality? Just because you found it, then therefore it is? Like this is some absurd type of thing. Our argument is nature does not define morality. Okay? Nature does not define morality. Nurture should also not define morality. Okay? Nature does not, meaning the way that we are, and nurture, the way that we grow up, this also should not define morality. Like I just mentioned to you, our reason and our intellect, no matter which society you live in, is always going to be limited. Now for humanity, all of humanity, my small human brain cannot make the decision for all other humans. Okay? I barely can decide for my wife. You men agree with me? Sisters can also agree. You have no idea what your husband is saying. I have no idea what my wife is saying. When she says yes, it's no. When it's no, it's yes. I don't know how to play this game. Right? So I try. I try to say no sometimes, and she says it's wrong, right? When I ask her, is anything wrong? She says nothing is wrong. And so then I sit down and say, okay, I'll play my video games and ignore her. Next thing you know, she's crying. I'm like, you just told me nothing is wrong. What is this? Who's lying? What is happening? Right? The idea that a human, I'm a man, I can't even understand what a woman is thinking. And a woman can't understand what a man is thinking. How could I ever think that this small human brain could understand the whole project of humanity and make decisions about what is good and what is bad? There's no way. Okay? Reason and reality, like we heard from MashaAllah, very beautifully said, quoting David Hume, reason and ought to only be the slave of the passions. Reason is, and ought only to be the slave of the passions. Reason, your intellect, only proves what you want. It's a tool. If you want to, waliyadu billah, kill such and such individual, you justify it. If a person wants to commit a sin, you justify it. When Iblis did not make sajda to Adam alayhi salam, what did he do? He justified it. He said, I have a reason for doing this. What reason is, it is a double-edged sword. You can use it for good and you can use it for bad. Okay? So in any case, how can I be sure that giving human beings freedom to pursue, and we'll get to this inshallah. Okay, now let's get to the next topic. I hope everyone's okay inshallah. Is everyone fine? Can we continue? Is everyone okay inshallah? Yes. Inshallah. Human rights. Okay, so we talked about happiness. We talked about desires, which again, the foundational framework of liberalism, that you should desire things because you have desires, and desires will lead you to happiness, right? Now let's talk about one of the extensions, which is human rights. That liberalism leads to a present understanding, like the UN Charter of Universal Human Rights, right? In 1948, the UN comes together and basically writes out these 30 articles, or 30 principles, saying that this is the universal human rights. Your rights for all of humanity, okay? And they have this really nice, you can look it up on Google, this nice little infographic. If you ever want to teach human rights to your children, mashallah. Everyone, mashallah. Mashallah, right? Okay. It's a nice book. It has really adorable pictures and everything, okay? The main thing, first and foremost, before we get to anything, is that when it comes to the 30 articles and 30 principles, whatever you want to call them, in the book, none of them are provable. None of them are provable. In terms of the logical syllogism, to prove them, you can't prove them. Okay, I'll give you an example. Okay, I want you to think really hard. How do you prove freedom of speech? Why should a human have freedom of speech? Go ahead, try this. I want it. Because I want. Just because you want, should you have? Does that make sense? It's a good point. That's what people usually argue. They say that because I want it. But why? Why is it there? Is it actually good? I just want you to think. Again, it's something we consider to be so fundamental. But what is the proof that you should have freedom of speech? You might actually give a good answer, so I want you to hold up. We're going to mess around. Go ahead.
Because if you allow for freedom of speech, then the good thoughts will bubble up.
Yeah, mashallah, if we have a freedom of speech, then the good thoughts will bubble up, and mashallah, this beautiful curry dish that we make, and the bubbles will come up, mashallah, and everyone can eat the tandoori chicken at the end, mashallah. Mashallah, I can also argue on the flip that I don't think everyone has the right to talk, because what happens, you get something crazy like Twitter, where the academic and the imbecile are all equal. You have no idea who's the alim and who's the jahil, right? Not everyone seems like they can manage freedom of speech. Rather, one guy making a decision probably is better for everybody. Wallah alim, I'm just saying, how do you prove it? Rationally, how do you prove it? It's a little tough. People are like, it's a fundamental right. My thing is that, look man, I can't tell you. If I could just keep my mouth shut, I'd probably get into less arguments with my wife. But the fact is that I have to talk because we have freedom of speech. What can we do? Sometimes it seems like it's not. This is the thing. In a logical discussion, how do you actually prove that human beings have this right as a principle? Just because we talk is not a reason that we should be able to have freedom of speech. Okay? Moreover, what are the limits of freedom of speech? Does anyone ever agree? Does anyone ever say that there's no limits whatsoever to freedom of speech? Anywhere in the world. Okay? There are limits anywhere, everywhere. All of existence understands this. Okay? If I were to go to someone and say and curse their mother, right? If I were to curse their mother, okay, and the guy punched me in the face, did I deserve it? Right? If I went to court, who would they blame? Me, because I use hateful speech. There are limits to these things. If you don't believe it, ask my wife. Okay, next one, okay? Why do we need to have freedom of speech? This is the thing. Again, I told you, certain places it seems like the freedom of speech is actually very, very detrimental, okay? We can bring it more fundamental. Why do we need to be free? Right? Even more fundamental. I know it's like something even you don't think about, but I want you to think, inshallah. Again, every single declaration in the UN, Declaration of Universal Human Rights, argues these points, but the problem is that none of them are proven. Okay, why does a human need to be free? There's nothing in nature to suggest that we are free. Okay, what do they usually say? A baby is a baby. Minds are equal. The baby comes out a free baby. I said, no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. What are certain shackles that automatically come onto me as soon as I come in the world? What are certain chains that I can't remove? I can't remove my culture. I can't remove my race. I can't remove my ethnicity. I can't remove my abilities, right? I come out with certain stats. You know, like your video games, you have like certain stats, like attack, defense, and everything like that. So if you threw a punch at me, I probably would die. That type of guy, right? And so you come out with certain abilities, right? Who decided that for you? It was imposed on you. It was forced on you. You were enslaved by the day you got into this world. Humans are born into chains, I would argue. We're not actually free. No one is free. There's no such thing as actual absolute freedom. It's impossible. Okay, in reality, human beings are there. They're shackled by the environment and circumstance. And this is not me arguing this point. I want to make it clear. This is a wonderful book by this Joseph Kaminsky. I'll get the title at the end, inshallah. The title is long and it slips my mind every time. Joseph Kaminsky, he writes a really book about Islam and liberalism. And I really recommend it. It's a good read. It's a good read. It's good enough for an academic and a person who doesn't feel so academic. You can read it, inshallah. It's good. So he writes about McIntyre in 1997, arguing about this. And I'm going to read a good part of it, okay? He argues about this notion of universal rights and appeals to intuition. He comments and says there are no such rights, right? There's no way to prove, by nature, by nurture, whatever, that a human has these rights because he's human. There's no way to objectively prove it, just by your reason alone. And belief in them is one with the belief in witches and in unicorns. SubhanAllah. Non-Muslim is saying this. The best reason for asserting so bluntly there are no such rights is indeed precisely the same type as the best reason. And he goes and says that which we possess for asserting that there are no witches, and he mentions the extra things. I just want to show you the last part. I don't have time to read the whole thing, but it's nice. He goes and says that in the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights of 1949, what has since become the normal UN practice of not giving good reasons for any assertions whatsoever is followed with great rigor. He goes and says that the United Nations, when they declared all these things to be universal human rights, the problem is that they never gave any proof for it. This is the first time in all of philosophy. If you come to any philosophy class, you're coming to argue. Okay? When the UN imposed all these universal rights to everyone, did they prove any single one of them to you? In reality, they didn't prove anything. And then everyone's just supposed to buy it and accept it. This is what the Liberalism project wants you to do. To kind of shut off your brain and just accept it. Okay? This is why it's mentioned exactly in another place. Right? They say that what happens is, when people tell you freedom of speech, if you try to argue this point, I'm doing this in a masjid, in a dars type of conversation. If I went outside and said we shouldn't have freedom of speech, what would people say to me immediately? Put this imam in jail, right? This kid does not deserve to be in the street. He's crazy. He's crazy. How could you ever think that people shouldn't have freedom of speech? It is so fundamental and integral, although it has no dalil and no evidence behind it. But it becomes so integral and fundamental, an axiomatic rule that's been put out for humanity. It's become so fundamental, it's become as if it is tradition. The same thing liberalism came to remove. Liberalism came to say there is no tradition, there is no past, nothing. We're here to make it as we go along. It's unbelievable that liberalism itself has become tradition. People just say, it's just been like that, bro. Just leave it like that, bro. Okay, bro, it's fine. You know? Now my next thing is, we talked about the rights. What made it universal? The UN. The United Nations made it universal. Okay, what made it universal? Who decided it? Right, who decided the universal rights? The Western powers. You know, this happened right after what? After World War II, right? You think Germany was involved? Why didn't they allow Germany? I don't know, obviously why they didn't allow it. The thing is that, like, you can see that there is a huge amount of humanity that wasn't asked about this, that these are supposed to be rights for everyone. Because some of them are contentious, right? Not all of them. Obviously, I told you as Muslims, we could agree that people have a certain limit to freedom of speech. We all agree with that as Muslims, right? MashaAllah. But the thing is that there are certain things that are legitimately contentious. My main contention is that, why'd you call it universal? Who made it? Who allowed you to call it universal? Universal means like if our aliens were to come down, congratulations, Mr. Alien, Mr. Barack Obama or something alien, right? You also have freedom of speech as well. Like what? How? Who is choosing? On what basis are we selecting? Right? Because the majority of the people. Is that why? All right. Who's in the world other than the Western powers? What other countries are there? Who? Go on, you can say loud. Indonesia, Africa, the other continents, right? One liberal Muslim argues against human rights and universal human rights. He says it cannot be true if it is rejected by Muslims, an estimated quarter of humanity today. Okay? He said, were the Muslims signed up for this project of universal human rights? Did anyone like mashwara or consult them and say, okay, brother from Bangladesh and Pakistan and India, what is your idea of human rights? Do you agree with this? That people should be allowed to insult the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Did anyone agree to that? Absolutely not. I completely reject this. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَإِن تُطِيعْ أَكْثَرَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يُضِلُّوكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. If you follow the majority of the people of the earth, they will misguide you from the path of Allah. إِن يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ. The Quran is so deep, wallahi. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, they only follow thinking. I translated directly as one. They only follow thinking. We thought this is right and therefore it becomes right. وَإِنْهُمْ إِلَّا يَخْرُسُونَ. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, they're only following their limited human thinking and they are only guessing. Because they can't really make an affirmative decision about this because they don't know all of humanity. How could you be universal when you don't know how every human lives out in the world universally? You can't make that decision. Okay, now I ask you, after this universal human rights declarations come out, what quality of life has improved in the last century? I want you to think really deeply about these countries that have been trying to impose the superficial imposition of universal human rights on these countries that did not sign up for this liberal project. What happened to them? This destabilization of many governments, right? I'll read this out very quickly to you. Efforts to enforce liberal modes of discourse within transitioning Muslim states has thus far proven to be disastrous, even if the implementation of liberalism in many of these cases has been stillborn. Efforts to speedily implement liberal or republican reforms following the overthrow of monarchy during the 1950s and 60s in places like Tunisia, Libya, Iraq, northern Yemen, Egypt backfired spectacularly and ultimately resulted in the decades of brutal authoritarian rule in all the aforementioned countries. This is crazy. When they tried to impose liberalism on countries that did not sign up to this liberal project, what happened to all these countries? What happened to Arab Spring? We should be honest about it. Every single one of them ended up having a broken government, and people started to go into riots and fights, and there was much bloodshed that was caused. While the people in the Western world were sleeping and relaxing and enjoying in their houses that were with warmth and shelter and everything, there were Muslims that are starving, homeless on the streets, dying. And who allowed this project to go through? May Allah forgive, the displacement of thousands occurred because of this liberal project, this human rights project, the ruthless killing and torture, and most importantly is the depression and suicide. You know what's crazy? You'd imagine that the liberal countries in the world, and again I'm just giving you statistics, you all know this stuff, you know this better than myself. I don't know these things, I studied in madrasa. Look, you all just know this better than myself. That, subhanAllah, the most liberal countries in the world, what do you expect? The goal of liberalism was what again? What is the goal of liberalism? Maximize happiness, to become happy. So what do you expect liberal countries to be? Happy. They should be happy. They should be happy. What do we find? The top 10 countries with the highest rates of depression. I think 9 out of 10 of them are the liberal countries. Isn't that insane? Because maybe, possibly, when they said liberalism conforms with reality or what humans are, maybe, I just giving this point, maybe that's not how humans were designed. Maybe it's the case that this is something artificial implanted on humans. That human beings actually are not supposed to be signed up to the liberal project of just pursuing your good to make you happy. Okay? And why do celebrities, having the whole world of pleasures before them, they literally can drink and smoke and do anything that they want. Every haram act is before them. These people should be the happiest according to the liberal paradigm. But what do you find about celebrities? Not only are they depressed, but subhanAllah, some of them even take their own lives. They said, forget about life. Life is not worth living anymore. This is the tragedy and again, the logical end of liberalism. And I know because, may Allah Ta'ala give us understanding, we grew up with a certain liberal attitude because of the fact that our countries kind of had this imposed on it. And I don't mean to offend any of our uncles or our grandfathers in the community or in the masjid, mashallah. Again, what happens is we have a certain level of it because we found some benefit towards it. But you have to understand, if the liberalism project goes out, it becomes very toxic. Because maybe human beings were not designed to live in pleasure. Would you agree? For some reason, the more pleasure we get, it doesn't seem to live in happiness. A man who commits zina after zina after zina after zina, watch such haram images every single night of his life and existence, yet he's not becoming happy. He's not becoming happy. Because maybe we weren't designed to just live in pleasure. Maybe that's part of the design. Okay? And most importantly, we talked about rights for so long. What are the responsibilities of humans? What are the responsibilities? Right? This is the main thing that we don't see in the liberal discussion. Everyone talks about rights. Everyone talks about rights. I should get this, I should get this, I should get this. Okay, as a human though, if you have rights by natural order or law, you must have some responsibility too. You must be here for something. You're not just here for nothing, right? You're here for something. What is the something that you're here for? Explain it to me. No liberal today can tell you that. Because why? Because again, it's all based on conjecture. And now, this is the biggest one. What happens when you start to disagree with liberal values? So now you go and see that the Prophet Muhammad they're giving a picture of the Prophet in a classroom. Like it's been done in like the UK, for example. Now as a Muslim, what did you feel when you heard that the Prophet they drew a picture of him? What did you feel? Anger, frustration. And you get so mad, you protest, you argue, you scream and you shout. Because if you were to insult my mother, it's probably easier on me than insulting the Prophet ﷺ. He's half of my kalima, la ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah ﷺ. You have insulted the man who's given me this blessing of Islam. Through the hymn, Rasulullah ﷺ, Allah Azza wa gave us Islam. This man, Rasulullah ﷺ, is very cherished to Muslims. But what does the liberal say? Freedom of speech. You should be allowed to do so. Okay? What happens when you start to disagree with liberal values? Let me give you an example. Should we have an example? This is Article 21 of the UN Universal Human Rights. The will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government. The will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of the government, and this shall be expressed in periodic and genuine elections, which shall be universal by universal equal suffrage, and shall be held by secret vote or by equivalent free voting procedures. What this basically said in a nutshell is, if the people decide for any leader, and they all agree, the majority of the people want this leader, what should happen? What happens to that person? He should become the leader, right? If they decide on him, he should become the leader. Now, how does this play out in reality? Okay? Right? Sometimes what happens is, these countries, and this is something very ajib about humanity, we like strong leaders. Don't you like strong leaders? You know, there's something appealing about, I didn't come to Georgia to talk about republicanism and all this different stuff, but you get it, my guy, at least politics was a little interesting during that time, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was nice to like, figure out, oh dang, what did he do now, you know? And he was strong. Not like Sleepy Joe, you feel a little tired looking at this boy, right? Get a little frustrated. My main thing is not to talk about it, my main thing is to discuss that. What happens is human tendency, and there are many lectures you can listen in, documentaries. Human tendency is that we like authoritarian leaders. We like leaders that show dominance and power and assertion. It's in the Quran, بَسْطَةً فِي الْعِلْمِ وَالْجِسْمِ. When Allah chose Talut as the king, Allah says the reason why he was chosen, under the words of the Nabi of the time, alayhi salam. When Shamuel alayhi salam says it to the people, why Allah chose Talut as the leader of the Bani Israel at the time, is because he had ilm and jism. He was very profound in his knowledge, and he's very profound in his body. He was a big guy, you know. Now Shakeel doesn't make a good leader, he's too tiny. He's like barely can eat for himself. How can he feed the humanity, right? Or ummah, whatever, right? So, you know, we like, oh, big guy, mashallah, asad, mashallah ta'ala. You know, alhamdulillah, good guy, strong guy, leader, mashallah. May Allah accept, Ameen. Ya Rab, okay? But sometimes the liberal project does not like that you chose a leader that is authoritarian. So then what happens? When he disagrees with general liberal values, what happens to the guy? What did he do to him? I mean, I don't want to start giving you all this governmental, I don't like talking about politics much, it's not my approach or my feeling. But what happens to the guy that the people chose? Democratically they chose this man, but the Western powers don't like him. He gets impeached, removes, He wakes up assassinated. Like that's one of like something happens to him. Something happens. He goes to jail. Like how? Some rigged election. Something, right? Something happens, and then what happens is this man is never seen anymore. Right? There's so many. Literally, we could spend a whole bayan on this about so many leaders that are just taken out of power just because why? Because the liberal powers of the world didn't like him because he didn't agree with the general liberal values. Okay? It's not me that's saying it. The Iraqi transitional government, Ali Allawi says that he astutely commented that the prized tolerance of these Western societies has an adverse side in the form of an intolerance. The tolerant picture of liberalism is intolerant and disregards for other civilizations, which may not subscribe to the universal nature of Western values. The values that they have, they might not agree with it. And so what happens is, when liberalism is supposed to be this tolerant idea, what happens now? The tolerance becomes intolerant. Karl Popper says this in his famous paradox of toleration. This is the big thing. If we extend unlimited tolerance even to those who are intolerant, if we extend tolerance to be like, I accept you for who you are and whatever, right? Rainbows and unicorns and monkeys and Zeus and whatever, no problem, right? Lakum dinukum, whatever. And you go and say, we accept even everything, even those who are intolerant. If we are not prepared to defend a tolerant society against the onslaught of the tolerant, then the tolerant will be destroyed. They said basically that there are some people in the world that are intolerant of our values, and our job is to defend against them and fight against them and argue against them. Okay? He goes and says that if you look at the bottom here, when such views do become powerful and a threat to the liberal order, then suppression is necessary. The thing is that there are certain things you can discuss about, in a liberal society, which they consider acceptable. So liberalism gives you that. They say you can talk about these things. But the moment you step your bounds and talk about something else, something beyond liberalism, or something beyond the society, or something so transformative in people's minds, the liberal government will try its best to shut you down. Okay? Whatever way that they can. Alright? My man, mashallah, Tabji, good man, mashallah. Make dua for his hidayah. Allah Ta'ala give him more hidayah, ya Rabbil Alamin. He became Muslim, mashallah, right? Mashallah. At least say mashallah. He's a good guy. He got a little problem here. His pants, his awrah is a bit showing in the Hanafi madhab, right? It's not the best thing in the world. But it is what it is, right? Again, make dua for him. But the ajib thing is that when they try to shut down someone, just take the example of shutting down someone. When they want to shut down someone whose views are so powerful, right? The liberal government and everything in the world will do whatever they can. They'll swipe your Twitter, they'll take your social media, they'll put you in jail, they'll try to make you rot, whatever it is. They don't want you to talk anymore. Because what you say now is harmful, because you could create change. Right? So now the tolerant liberalism that is out there becomes intolerant. Okay? And so this is what happened. This is James Mill, John Stuart Mill's father. He was praising the British Dominion of India. What did he say? The wider the circumference of the British Dominion, he says the larger that the British can control, the more extensive the reign of peace. Digest that for a second. He said the more the British control, the more peaceful the world becomes. Wow, I guess the Indian Mutiny and all the ulama and all the people that died and every single tree that if you went by the largest road in India at that time, that they put every tree that was there, they hung an alim from there to make it clear that these ulama should never speak against the British ever again. That incident happened in Indian history. I guess that was peaceful. Could you imagine that? This is what they said, right? They said if it embraced the whole peninsula of India and were supported with any tolerable degree of wisdom, a very considerable period of peace would be probably ensured. So that the longer the British could rule, the better it is for India. Could you imagine that? SubhanAllah. That if they had oppression, if they had ruled and colonized the people, although they are being controlled and having their rights enforced and their responsibilities enforced upon them, they say, congratulations, you are free now. When they force their own rights on you, they say, congratulations, you're free. Okay? John Stuart Mill went even worse. He said despotism is necessary in dealing with barbarians. Who's the barbarians? He said despotism, which means despotism. He said that to basically tyranny and oppression is required when it comes to dealing with barbarians. Who's the barbarians? Who was the Western world fighting at the time? Everyone else. They're the Ottomans, everyone else. Everyone else to them is a barbarian. Because you weren't blessed with liberal values. Therefore, you didn't know how to live yet. Until you come to our level, you evolve to become like the white man. Now you become a human being. Before that, you weren't even human. Now for you, we can force you. We won't force the white man. We won't force the Western countries. But we'll force you because we can do it because you don't know how to be a human being. So liberalism is a double-edged sword. Okay? I won't take any much longer, inshallah. Just give me 7 minutes, inshallah, we'll be done. Liberalism is a double-edged sword. When liberalism is used against another country that doesn't have liberalism, what happens to that country? When you use the sword of liberalism against a country, what happens to it? It gets destroyed and you start to oppress the country. Does everyone agree? The country becomes oppressed. Okay? Now the same guy who's holding the sword, the liberal, he's no longer a liberal. Because the liberal should have said what? Your values, whatever you want, is fine. It's free. Do whatever you want. You came up with it, it's okay. But the liberal, the moment he took the sword and attacked the person and said that you don't know how to be a free man, I will show you how to be a free man. Then what does he do? He oppresses that person and he himself becomes the oppressor. The liberal has become the oppressor. The liberal has become the enforcer. He's the one who's putting people into chains. This is why we argue this point. It is completely impractical as an ideology. What I mean by that is, liberalism, when it's brought into the real world, automatically has to oppress people. It has to. Because it tells you that these are your rights, and this is what you need, and this is what it means to be a human. Even though before that you were living like a human, being a human, existing like a human. Now you didn't really know. Now I need to teach you and enforce it upon you. That's why in this real world, when it comes out, it becomes very impractical. It never frees people. All it does is enslaves them. When it was supposed to help out the marginalized, the people who are suffering in the community, and being the low people in the community, it actually brought them into a lower state of humanity. Okay? The reality of the project is this. They don't really want you to be liberated, right? They like to make a pen. They want you to feel liberated under subjugation. Okay? It's just you have certain chains on you. I told you, as human beings, we're all born with a set of chains. Every human in reality is a slave to something. You are chained wherever you are. But the idea, the liberal idea is that you were living under those chains and that was fine. Now congratulations, here's a different set of chains now. Where are these chains? This is why I remind you all, politics, unfortunately, it's a dirty game. May Allah grant us afiyah, and may Allah help all the Muslims who are in the political sphere. It's not easy. You know, everyone curses every other politician, Muslim politician. I say, subhanAllah, make dua for the man. Make dua for the man. It's not haram, right? You can hate him. Right? You can hate him. No problem. You don't have to like everyone, right? But you should make dua for him. Allah grant him hidayah. You're like cursing this man, just trying to destroy him, give him la'nah and stuff like that. If he gets guidance, what happens to your life? It becomes better. The thing is that politics in itself is not looking for truths. What does politics want? Politics just wants a reason to justify its sins. Right? That's all politics wants. Is that they're looking for some reason to justify what it wants to do. If the Western world found that liberalism is the best way to take care of all of the countries in the world and to put them under colonialism, and what did the Western powers find? Congratulations, we have a philosophy. Let's now impose it. If there's a certain government in the world that is oppressing women and not giving them feminism, then what becomes the right now for the Western world to do? To go to them and show them how this is how you're supposed to treat women. And if they don't have democracy, what is the right of the Western world now? To show you that this is how you're supposed to have a government. Everything. It is a nafs and its most carnal desires. My main thing to remind everyone is, we have been indoctrinated in every step of the way. You have to think for yourself. And understand that, subhanAllah, the last 100 years we've been programmed to think a certain way. And we never stop thinking that way. And you have to turn the gears off for one moment. And remind yourself, where did this all come from? No dalil for the premises or its conclusion or anything. Yet we all bought into the liberal paradigm. Why? How? Okay? My final thing, inshallah, after this inshallah, is what is a human? If I were to ask you what is a human, how will you define it? Go ahead, try it. We'll do this real quick, inshallah. Huh? It's kind of hard, right? After everything we talked about the universal, we talked about the rights. Now the last word in the universal human rights is human. You at least expect us to understand what human is, right? If I ask a biologist, he'll probably give me some definition of a human, right? Some bipedal type of organism that walks on the earth, or whatever, right? Whatever, in any case. It has testosterone or estrogen, XY chromosome, whatever, right? If you ask the biologist, if you ask a logician, a philosopher, hayawan natik, right? The rational animal, right? But defining what a human is tough. What does liberalism think is a human? A liberal thinks that a human is just here to obtain pleasure and happiness. They said that a human being is here so that he can maximize his pleasure so he can become happy. That is what a liberal understands a human to be. I ask you, is that what a human is? That we came here to live just to get pleasure? Is a human's whole existence to live hedonistically? That we're just here for hedonism, to just enjoy and live in pleasure and pleasure and pleasure. أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ, the Quran says. Have you seen the one who makes his desires his God? Right? Allah Azza wa Jalla, very beautiful in the Quran, a strong refutation. Allah says, look at the man who said, my God is my desires. He said he is free. Wallahi, wallahi, wallahi. This man has never been free. Because now he's become even a bigger slave to his desires. He's actually the biggest slave in the world. Because now he's not even like a human who can control his desires. He's an animal who submits to his desires. What a big chained animal this man is. Is this what we're here for? Okay? Are we only here to live in pleasure and avoid pain and then die? This is what the liberal understands, the materialistic understanding. That we're only here in this world. Okay? وَقَالُوا إِنْ هِيَ إِلَّا حَيَاتُنَا الدُّنْيَا نَمُوتُ وَنَحْيَا. They say, it's the Quran. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He speaks about everything in the Quran. If you didn't find it in the Quran, you didn't look hard enough. وَقَالُوا إِنْ هِيَ إِلَّا حَيَاتُنَا الدُّنْيَا. They say this is the only life, worldly life. We're here to die and live. Right? وَمَا لَهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ عِلْمٍ. Allah says they have no knowledge. They don't know. Because why? What happens after we die? You will go to your qabr. You will be munkar and nakir. There is a punishment of the grave. You will wake up on the day of judgment. That day will be 50,000 years. You will either go to Jannah or Jahannam. And you all can make the decisions while you're alive now to change that reality where you're going to go. That the liberal does not understand. And because of that lack of understanding of the next life, he thinks we're just supposed to live here and just live in pleasure and just die according to this pleasure. Is there something greater in life? Okay? And this is the thing, the focus on rights instead of responsibilities. Islam does not focus on your rights. I want to tell you, it's a focus of Islam. As a focus. You read a book of fiqh, does it tell you what rights you have? When you open up Kitab al-Salah, the book of Salah, what does the book of Salah tell you? What your responsibilities are, what you have to do. Islam is all about what you have to do. Okay? Because the understanding of Islam is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent you in this world with responsibility. If you fulfill the responsibility, what's going to happen to you? What will happen to you? If you fulfill the responsibility? You will be happy. This is the thing. The liberal misunderstood the problem completely. The liberal understood that if I get my rights, I'll be happy. Islam said, no, fulfill your responsibility, you'll be happy. Because your rights, no one can fulfill it. Trust me, as a husband, we feel that pain every day, bro. Okay? As a wife too, she probably like, this guy never fulfills any of my rights. This guy's a loser. No problem. May Allah bless her even more. MashaAllah. I still make up for her. Right? It's tough. Because in this life, trust me, no one can fulfill your haqq, brother or sister. Only one being can fulfill your haqq. Who's that being? Our soul demands more. Okay? Our soul demands more. Okay? This is why, subhanAllah, you want to have a child. I'm telling you, mashallah, you know? The guys, subhanAllah, my humble advice, I know, well, I'm sorry for going a little more time again. You know, some guys, they delay the getting the children. They say, I want to go like scuba diving with my wife, and skydiving with my wife, and like, you know, whatever, skinny diving with my wife. What weird people you are, whatever, right? You're all fat diving, and there's no one skinny diving here. May Allah bless you all, mashallah. You know, like, we delay it. I tell you, why are you delaying it? Children are one of the biggest happiness in the world, and you'll never understand until you have a child. That place that the child takes in your heart will only maybe bring you more love for your life. Because no longer is she just your wife, she's the mother of your children. And that love you have for her is now doubled. And you can't change that. That's in the heart now. Bearing children makes it's very difficult to prove on the liberal paradigm. Because what does a child do for a human being who's trying to maximize pleasure? It becomes a roadblock, it becomes pain. One of the hafizes in the masjid, mashallah, he went to Cancun, I think it's in Mexico, right? I don't know my geography, so you can, and I'm really tired, you know. Mashallah, Jazakallah for helping with that geography. May Allah bless you. So the thing is that he went there, he said, we went there 2 years ago with our 2 kids, and he had 2 girls. And he said, Alhamdulillah, we enjoyed, we had a good time in Cancun. He said, but this year, like 2 years later, mashallah, his 3rd child was born. It wasn't a daughter, what was it? It was a son. He said, we went to Cancun again. What happened? He said, it was such a miserable experience. Because daughters are angels from Allah Ta'ala. Okay? A boy, unbelievable type of adab from Allah. You'll be making dua, Allah, why'd you punish me? It's so difficult to raise a boy. He's so annoying, subhanAllah, it's so hard. Allah Akbar, right? We don't have time to talk about it. The thing is that bearing children is something that on the liberal paradigm, it doesn't increase your pleasure. That's why these Western countries, liberal countries, have the lowest birth rates. Why? Because it's not a good thing to have children. But bearing children, if you had the responsibility of being a father, just some happiness comes in your heart. Wallahi. Wallahi. My father used to wake up 4 a.m., come home at 7 p.m. Because why? My father had to work his regular job and overtime, so he can make sure to provide food to the table. He is such a happy man. I can't understand it. His whole life is being used in work. But he's been retired now. And he says, when can I go back to work? It's just he's happy to fulfill responsibility. Allah has made that in you. When you fulfill your responsibilities, you'll be a true human being. That's why the mother is the worst job for the liberal paradigm. Why is the mother the worst job? She literally sold her body and gave up her whole existence for this child. This is completely contrary to individualism. She's literally living for something else. That's why in this whole society they hate mothers. Barbie movie, everything. They hate mothers. Because this mother is someone, subhanAllah, that Islam considered to be the most praiseworthy of all jobs. Sadaqa Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Man came, Ya Rasulullah, who should I treat well in life? He said, Ummak. He said, okay, then who? Ummak, your mother. Then who? Ummak, then your mother. He's like, then who? He said, Abak, then your father. SubhanAllah, right? A family, raising a family. It makes no sense in the liberal paradigm. My final thing, inshallah, what is the key to happiness? My argument to everyone is, listen, on the liberal paradigm, chasing pleasure seems to not work for humans. My argument and the argument that Muslims make is that the key to happiness, the key lies with its creator. Okay? MashaAllah, alhamdulillah, a lot of brothers have iPhones, mashallah. May Allah increase you guys, mashallah. You know, iPhone is such a nice invention, right? This guy, Steve Jobs, whatever, dude is dead, whatever can we do, right? In any case, he created the iPhone, it has a certain purpose, right? What is the purpose of the iPhone? Right, play video games, whatever, right? Now imagine I use the iPhone and start like, hey, look at the frisbee. Right? It'd probably be a good frisbee, would you not agree? It probably would be a good frisbee. But what would the iPhone feel? That's not why it was made. Like, it's one story. Just take the story. Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani, rahimahullah ta'ala, one of the greatest of the Mashayikh, one of the greatest ulama of the Hanbali madhab as well, right? The great Shaykh of Islam. He went to go milk a cow. Just take the story. It's a little funny story. He went to start milking a cow. He's a great Shaykh, but he started to work to milk the cow. So then the cow turns to him. And the cow starts saying, Shaykh Abdul Qadir Jilani, you weren't created for this. Okay, I guess it wasn't as funny as I thought it was. Okay, the point being is that when you're doing something that's not what you were created for, you won't be happy for it. No matter what you try, you won't be happy. You have to do what you were made for, and that's what will make you happy. When you focus on responsibilities, because that's what makes you insan. Allah brought you into the world with responsibility. Every day you must pray 5 times a day. That is why you were created. As a human, in the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you are here to pray 5 times a day. That doesn't change. And this is the thing, people are focusing on every other thing, but you are supposed to pray 5 times. When did we wake up for Fajr? Did we pray our Salah on time? What are we praying? We're praying Dhuhr at the end of the waqt. We're praying it with Asr. We're doing Jama' Suri. Right? We're combining our Dhuhr and Asr together. Right? We're praying Dhuhr at the end of the waqt, Asr at the beginning of the time. We're praying Maghrib at the end, all the way to Isha. We're praying Isha at Fajr time. What the heck is wrong with our life? And people ask why we're not happy. Because you didn't fulfill the rights of the Creator. How could you ever be happy? You didn't fulfill your responsibility. Allah Azza wa Jal says, Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. Only, this is your aqidah. Only through the remembrance of Allah will your heart find rest. Wallahi, it's in the Quran. Allah Azza wa Jal says, if you want to be happy and content and having a good life, you have to remember Allah Ta'ala. This is why we mentioned hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, whoever seeks forgiveness, Allah Azza wa Jal, man lazam al-istighfar, جعل الله لكل ضيق مخرجا ومن كل هم فرجا ورزقه الله من حيث لا يحتسب. I recommend this. The Prophet ﷺ said, hadith Abu Dawud, whoever does regular istighfar, astaghfirullah, 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 Allah will point a way out for him from every distress. He'll give you relief from every anxiety, and He'll give you rizq from places you cannot even imagine. Allah will provide from ways you cannot imagine. Sad hearts. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّهُ لَيُغَانُ عَلَىٰ قَلْبِي. The Prophet ﷺ said, surely at times there feels like there's a cloud over my heart. The Prophet ﷺ saying, إِنَّهُ لَيُغَانُ عَلَىٰ قَلْبِي وَإِنِّي لَأَسْتَغْفِرُ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى وَأَتُوبُ إِلَيْهِ مِئَةَ مَرَّةٍ. The Prophet ﷺ said, and wallahi, I seek forgiveness and istighfar by Allah Ta'ala 100 times a day. I'm telling you this, I'm giving you this talk because why? You came here for liberalism and a philosophy, that's fine. But you're a Muslim. You should know how to get happiness. And your happiness is in the zikr of Allah Ta'ala. The reason why we're so miserable today is because no one sits down to remember Allah. Because we become so busy to say, Allah, we don't have time for you anymore. My Allah is calling me every day and saying, where are you to talk to me? I'll solve every problem you have, but we shut the phone and we ignore Allah Ta'ala. That's why we're sad. True contentment lies in this, inshallah. When you live life according to your purpose, you will be happy, inshallah. My final thing, may Allah grant us tawfiq, inshallah. Allow us to become people to understand the Islamic paradigm and understand that humanity is much bigger than just pleasures. Pleasure and happiness are two different things. The liberals confused both and made them into one. Whereas we recognize that pleasure is supposed to be dealt with restraint. And Allah Ta'ala will grant us happiness from His side, inshallah. May Allah grant us the tawfiq to understand this. Again, I do apologize if I spoke a little abrasive. My goal again is, inshallah, to understand that the liberal paradigm has many faults. And it cannot prove itself under logical and rational principles. And if it cannot solve that problem, it has no right to talk about solutions. So may Allah grant us the tawfiq, inshallah. Wa sallallahu Muhammad wa sallam.
You can keep sitting.
Oh yeah, I have questions right now.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan wa Shakeel for the beautiful talk. So inshallah we can take questions from the brothers and sisters side, and as we know, for the people who came late, you can, this is the wrong slide, but you can submit your questions at ask.projectihya.com from the sister side, and from the brother side you can do the same, and you can also stand up and ask your questions. So inshallah, any questions, we can ask your questions. So inshallah, keep the questions to the topic and try to be concise. And like on the question submissions, I still see people, they're like asking 50 questions, like if I go on Hajj, what if I do an Arafat, and like, so inshallah, let's stick to the topic.
If I pass gas, is my wudu break.
So
You have your ulama, you ask your questions to your ulama, right?
I think
Sure.
so.
Go ahead.
Brother, yes, go ahead.
My name is Ghulam Durrani. My question is like, you deal when you meet people in society and raise the subject. You don't have enough time to discuss the whole thing. As a Muslim, if you're a person who believes in liberalism, what in a nutshell you can really tell them in one sentence so they can keep thinking and find out the way and find out the truth?
This is an excellent question. I'll repeat the question. The question is that, mashallah, the bayan was like over an hour. You spoke a lot of stuff. What is the simple thing that if you meet someone who's very much convinced by liberalism, to make them like kind of think more and deeply about this, right? And so my thing is that for me, the main topic for me is atheism. Okay? Before even liberalism is atheism. Because I don't even care about whatever morals you have in this life. Those are subjective things, those are a different discussion. But if you don't believe that there's a creator, right? So if a person comes to me and says that a human being should be able to say whatever he wants, do whatever he wants, right? I'll say that, am I not the Christian mother? And things like that, just to make them think a little bit. And say, brother, before that question, it's an excellent question, but what are we here for? Where did this whole universe come from? I'll ask this question first. Because I need them to become a Muslim before anything else. Because if they become a Muslim, then inshallah ta'ala, or they understand that there's a creator, then alhamdulillah we can have a conversation. But before that, it becomes very difficult. Does that make sense? To speak about atheism, try to fix out the idea that like there is something much bigger out there. Human beings are not here just because we're like coming from like some animalistic type of idea. We're here because there's a creator out there. I hope that addressed the question.
So next question I'll take from the submissions. So is dictatorship better than liberalism in a way?
Is dictatorship better than liberalism?
You mentioned strong leaders, so I think they're saying like, okay, is that in a way better?
I mean, like, there's always double-edged swords between everything. I said liberalism is a double-edged sword. A lot of things are double-edged swords. Even a person not practicing Islam is going to be a double-edged sword, right? And so, yeah, go ahead, Miah.
Because historically, it's not against liberalism. Actually,
Yeah.
liberalism and dictatorship are not.
Yeah, that's
you could have an
very good.
authoritative liberalism, right?
Yeah. I was going to mention, that's a very good point.
It's apples and oranges.
Yeah.
So do you want to come up here?
It's crazy because again, like, when you understand what a dictatorship is, like, you're just listening to this one authority and this one power, or whatever, right? And people think they have like a majority vote. Sometimes I wonder, like, do you really think subhanAllah, what a very easy way to make a liberal understand that there's no such thing as absolute freedom of speech? You want to know something easy? Right? Go and say that the Holocaust doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Go say the Holocaust doesn't exist. What's going to happen? Even in France, you cannot say the Holocaust doesn't exist. Because why? Because there's a certain community that will be offended, and that's completely wrong. Right? Absolute freedom of speech doesn't exist. And this is the thing, the liberal paradigm, the dictatorship, again, they're not apples and oranges. They can be, found. They're not mutually exclusive, right? They can be found in the same place. But the thing is that there is some benefit in terms of stability sometimes, and sometimes there is no stability as well. Again, all this politics and stuff, we understand as Muslims, mashallah, that Allah Ta'ala gave us deen. And this kalima is better than all this stuff. I think Mawlana Tafil, mashallah, mentioned that, this is not against conservatism or liberalism or whatever. Islam is beyond these things. Islam is a super meta conversation. They're not even on our level. They're like talking about ABC still. We're doing calculus, okay? Islam is doing calculus while they're playing with blocks, right? And so that's what I'm trying to tell everyone. That remember this, Islam is its own thing. It has some portions of socialism, some portions of capitalism, all this stuff is embedded because this is a very unique system because it came from the most divine Allah Azza wa Jalla, subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can't make the system up, right? Only human beings can do it. Allah.
So next question is from a sister. Can you say whether or not and how liberalism is causing climate change and environmental degradation?
Oh, subhanAllah, how is liberalism causing climate change?
Okay.
The invention of cars. The invention of cars is a very deep invention. Would you not agree?
Yeah.
The goal of human beings is to go and be able to travel as fast as they can. So what did the human do? To travel as fast as he can, he created what?
Airplane.
The airplane. How much pollution is created through airplanes? This is why you need all to fail up here. Because environmental damage through liberalism, so human beings can enjoy and be happy to go to Cancun and the Bahamas and whatever your honeymoon is supposed to be, whatever moon and honey you want, whatever, if you want to go to the moon, whatever, right? You want to be Elon Musk to blast a dang rocket up, right? Why not? This whole project of liberalism, unfortunately, very much has a big contribution to it, right? There's a hikmah and wisdom, about why Muslims didn't just go towards these things. About what they understood, that the harm could be towards the environment. In any case, it's a very good point that whoever asked the question, very good point, mashallah.
Any live questions? Please stand up and answer your question.
I've heard some people make the statement by supporting liberal agendas or by supporting liberal governments that allows a Muslim to retain certain freedoms to practice what they feel is correct. So it seems like there's a contradiction between, under the banner of full freedom, we're able to live our lives as good Muslims versus under the banner of liberalism, we're living a life in which we're always under attack.
I didn't really understand the question.
Can you
repeat it?
Repeat the question.
Yeah.
So, what would you say to a person that says, because of liberalism, I'm able to be a free Muslim?
Oh, because liberalism, I'm able to be a free Muslim.
I think he's saying give and take.
Give and take,
secularism.
yeah. Secularism.
We give their rights, they give us ours.
It's really secularism. It's actually a different conversation. It's a good conversation. I just want to give you some points to think about and consider, right? So, a person very much, they criticize a Muslim country that they came from. And this is just something to think about. Again, alhamdulillah, I thank Allah, I was born in New York. It was okay, right? The Kaaba of Allah Ta'ala is in Makkah. The Kaaba of Shaitan is Madison Square Garden, right? It's even inverted a little bit, right? So in any case, right, it is okay, right? But the thing is that, you can't separate liberalism, the fact that you're free to be a Muslim, from all the other things that come with the liberal baggage. And this is the thing that Mufti Rulumik, my teacher, Damat Barakatuh, used to say many times in class. He said, at least in a Muslim country, you are sure, at least no matter what happened to your kid, he would die in kalima, and he will be buried in a Muslim graveyard. He said that because I live in America, I don't know where my children will be, and I don't even know if I can get buried in the ground, because it costs money to get there. Something to think about. Because again, you have to take the whole baggage, everything together. It comes with the whole totality, right? You married the girl, it comes with all the baggage, right? So this is the thing, as a Muslim country, there are certain things again, that is there, right? That there are certain things which are bad and harmful. And you have to remember, as Muslims are coming from different countries, you've been colonialized for a whole century. Sometimes even 2 centuries. And so the whole economic stress, India, do you guys know the economy of India at one time? How big was the economy of India? Yes?
I don't remember the number, it's one of the best.
Yeah. One of the top, largest gross economies in the entire dunya. Then what happened? Who came? SubhanAllah, our countries are in a situation because of, it wasn't their own choice, really. It kind of was imposed and forced on them. Cordoba, there was one person who was coming, I think it was from France, or he came from Spain. He was a traveler that came through Cordoba, not Spain, he went through, I think it was France or Portugal or something. He's coming from basically a Western country, and he's coming into Cordoba, right, which is Muslim Spain, right? And so he goes and says that while Europe is suffering, where there's so much disease, and no plumbing, and there's no lights or anything. Cordoba, all the lights are lit. Such a beautiful place. They have an idea about how to clean themselves, so hygienic. And so while there's the dark ages in Europe that no one's able to even read a book, there's so many scholars and ulama and great people in Cordoba. I'm telling you, Muslims at one time had something. You're in this situation because we're after 100 years of colonialism. What can you do? So I just mentioned these things as a side point. You have to take the whole thing. As a Muslim living in this country, you got to protect your kids. This is amana before Allah. Allah gave you a child, He didn't give someone else a child. You have to protect your children. If they don't die on kalima, Allah will ask you first before anyone else. Allah asks you for my kids. Allah asks you about your children. May Allah protect. But remember that if you're living here and you're enjoying the freedoms here, make sure you protect your children from the dark side of these freedoms. Okay? I hope that answers your question.
So I'll take one more from here first and then go back to the audience. So this is from a brother, it's on the submissions. I get that the purpose of life is not to fulfill desires, but can't we have time to fulfill our desires in a halal way? Sometimes I get tired of working.
Yeah, mashallah, we have wives, mashallah, we have a good time with our wives, right? The halal, right? Mashallah, alhamdulillah, right? There's nothing, قُلْ مَنْ حَرَّمَ زِينَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي أَخْرَجَ لِعِبَادِهِ وَالطَّيِّبَاتِ مِنَ الرِّزْقِ, right? Who made haram on the ibad of Allah, the slaves of Allah, the halal things Allah has made in the world, right? There is, mashallah, you're allowed to enjoy it. I'm not telling anyone, when we talk about these things, we talk about restraint, right? The thing is, mashallah, you live life with restraint, you're not going towards haram, right? As long as you're doing things within halal means, mashallah, and you're not being excessive, right? Not doing israf. We can tone down a little bit on the marriages, right, Maulana? We can tone down a little bit on the marriages, right? Instead of getting the $20,000 hall, maybe we can get the $10,000 hall or something, right? We can tone down the music a little, put on a shida instead, right? SubhanAllah, we can tone down a little bit from the things that we're doing, but you're allowed to, right? People need luxury, they need to have leisure time, they need to enjoy, they need to do everything, right? You're not all going to sit in the masjid doing subhanAllah, 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 subhanAllah. We're going to have some great dhikr session with Maulana Sahib, right? Alhamdulillah, do the tasbihat. The thing is that you need some time for your own leisure, and that's fine. Use it, but be disciplined. Because what happens? A person makes their whole life leisure. Right? So the kid, when he's supposed to be playing video games for 1 hour, his whole day is video games, and he only works for 1 hour. That's what happens. You're not disciplined. You have no right to be leisured until you learn to be disciplined. Okay?
Yes.
Put Maulana up here. You should be sitting up here. Please, Maulana. Please.
Come on.
Good, Maulana.
It's about making the purpose of your life better.
There you go. A beautiful point, Maulana.
So just one simple way to think about that question is that when we're talking about liberalism is saying that make the purpose of your life better. Quran is saying that that's not the purpose of your life. You can have pleasure, that's fine, but it's not the purpose.
Very good point, Maulana.
It's a very helpful way to put it.
Yes, very good.
So another question from the audience, this brother, please stand up.
From what you're saying, I definitely.
Can you come closer a bit?
Sorry?
Can you come a bit closer and ask your question?
So from what you're saying, I can definitely feel that the Dawah of liberalism is like an affliction for the Muslims and like our Iman. So I just had a question for the scholars and the students of Modernism. What do we say about the hadith of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Can I read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is from Sahih Bukhari. It says, very from Sahih Bukhari, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, a time will soon come when the best property of the Muslim, these sheep, which you will take on top of the mountains in places of rainfall, so as to flee from his religion from afflictions.
SubhanAllah.
What does the scholars and ulama think about applying this now?
Very good question. The question was the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. His brother mentioned reporting Sahih Bukhari, where the Prophet ﷺ said that a time will come where the best mal, the best wealth of a Muslim, that he takes a sheep and he lives on basically a mountain, right? Separates himself from the fitan, right? And so, the scholars discuss has that time come or not, right? Basically live off grid, right? And this is the thing, this is why you need a shaykh. You really need to sit with the alim and really speak about your situation. I really tell people, again, we talked about some people are wiser than ourselves. And the ulama are the wisest of all people, okay? The ulama will help you, inshallah, with your own individual situation and give you one of the best solutions you can ever imagine for yourself. Someone as an individual could see that maybe living like that is better for themselves, right? Sometimes it's harmful though. Is it the time that the hadith of the Prophet said? We don't disagree with the hadith of Rasulullah. Sadaqa Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But we ask, is the time now or is it something much later? I guess scholars have a discussion. Is at the time of Dajjal? Is it the time now, right? And so we don't know if we're in that zamana yet. But having said that, some people it's good for them, some people it's not good for them. Some guy will go live off grid and even commit more haram than he does in this world, like while he's living with the people. So you have to be very careful about the halat, the situations of a person. I really, we have whole communities of Muslims in America that just cut themselves off from everyone, and they try to live like that. Okay, I many brothers who went back home, like from Muslim countries, and he tried to live on like the farming life and the sheep life and everything like that. Dude came back in like 2 months. He couldn't, like you act like we can manage it, like Allah forgive, but living off grid is kind of tough, right? There's a lot of things I barely made my own breakfast in the morning. Right, you think now it's one of like can chop wood and like live on a cabin and stuff like that, So be careful of isolation, right? Anyways, this is random. Go ahead. Oh, does that address?
Just another quick thing to mention is that Muslims, subhanAllah, we are so maybe embedded with getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and needing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that right after the time of the Prophet in the time of the Sahaba, in the time of the Tabi'un, from that time until today, there's always this impending gloom of the end of times, right? And if you look at scholarly discussions, you'll see that, for example, Ibn al-Qayyim, many other ulama, there's actually entire treatises that have been written as to like the Ummah will not cross 1,000 years. We're at what, 1445 now, right? So, but the treatise is written that the Ummah will not cross 1,000 years. Ulama before that, everything that 700 years, that's the maximum that the Ummah will go. And they took multiple ahadith, pieced it together and saw that this is what the beginning of times looked like. And they did all the math and that was their conclusion. So at all times, we're always kind of thinking like, is this the end of times? Is this the end of times? Because more and more alamat and signs are coming. And as we go by the day, we can see that times are getting weirder and weirder and weirder, right? It's not getting any better. So still, many people start to feel like maybe now is the time that I'm like done with society and I need to go live in seclusion. However, the principle that our ulama tell us is that as long as there's still room for us to make an effort for change, we should do so. Right? And Bukhari actually, Al-Adab al-Mufrad, Bukhari has multiple books, right? There's about 14 books that are associated with him. Some of them that are extant today and some of them that are not. Al-Adab al-Mufrad is another one of his books. In there, he narrates a narration where Rasulullah says, even if you think that tomorrow is the day of judgment, still like plant your seed. Right? So you still don't know that tomorrow is the day of Qiyamah or not, this is the last day or not. And so the principle is that as long as there's still room for us to be making efforts, and alhamdulillah, there's plenty of room. We don't know if there's not going to be another revival. And this has happened throughout history. That, when the Mongolians came and they destroyed everything. And so many ulama writing, as they were writing history, like Ibn Kathir as well, we see that and this is a longer discussion, but his book Al-Bidayah and Ihya, this is kind of his point that the beginning of history, starts from the time of Adam and actually even before that was the first creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he goes all the way until close to his time, and then he starts with the end of times, right? And many ulama at that time, they thought that this is done. Because imagine, they saw a huge empire that was like bustling, booming, and subhanAllah, they're producing so much knowledge, and it's an intellectual center, and the center of civilization. All of a sudden, all of this goes to dust. So they thought maybe this is the end. And then what happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revived the Ummah. And the attackers, the conquerors became the next revival. And so today also we're at our knees. The Khilafah ended, it's been 100 years, and so on and so forth. And now we feel like maybe it's again close to the end of times, and we don't know. It's possible that Allah again, as opposed to our expectation, will revive the from places that we didn't expect to. I mean, just this year should be a sign for us.
If you were in the mountains right now, you'd be missing this conference.
That's true.
You might not need it. So, okay, one more question from the list. While we may not agree with the paradigm of liberalism, the way they silence their enemies and enforce it on countries that don't agree, and I'm paraphrasing, and place them in their sphere of influence, wouldn't that also be how a Muslim nation would do?
So this is a really, really good question.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
sorry, you were going to say
I was
something?
going to say that we can, even the speakers, we can try to keep the answers to the question and concise,
No problem, inshallah.
so we can get through more.
Yeah, so this is again a really important point. My thing is that liberals aren't honest. That's the thing. Like they camouflage themselves. So again, they use words like, it's a 1984 type of situation, right? This Big Brother type of situation. They say it's freedom, it's actually slavery, right? They say that you're liberated, but you're actually oppressed, right? And they say that, look, we're here to make you free, but in reality they put you in chains. Right? This whole thing about liberalism, my thing is that you're not being honest. If you want to conquer us, be honest about your conquering. They say you want to fight, right? Don't do this weird backwards, back type of thing, right? Don't, come out, fight me like a man. If you want to square up, you square up, And the thing is that, this is the thing about dishonesty of this stuff, right? It's so disingenuous. They're lying to us, and they're saying they want this and this, but then they come and then they impose everything upon us, right? And so my thing is that the conquest and stuff like that, imperialism, there's a reality in human existence, okay? Just keep this in mind. I don't know how much you can talk before the FBI come and knock on my door. Okay?
We have 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, I mean...
So, inshallah, Paraguay will come then.
Okay. Stop it. Wait, okay? Is a human being, Allah Ta'ala created you to conquer. Allah Azza created you to conquer. Because Allah Ta'ala wanted you to conquer your nafs. Okay? As a human being, you're supposed to conquer your desires. Right? So this is something innate in humanity. We have nothing against it. As a Muslim, again, there are certain things within liberalism we agree with, like I told you. Because it fits the Islamic paradigm. We don't agree with it because it fits the liberalism. I don't even care what liberalism says. I care what Islam says. Because that is objective truth. Does that make sense? So I remind everyone, again, it's a very good question. We have nothing against it. My main thing is just like, man, they literally stuffed us down our throats for 100 years and they kept telling us we're liberating. They're literally choking you to death and saying, I'm liberating you. What are you trying to, liberating me from life or something? That's the main thing. Wallah.
Shakeel mentioned this great point of honesty, and it's true. If you look at the way liberalism spreads, it's through a lot of dishonesty. On top of that, also, if you compare what the Muslims did, and it's true that Muslims, like Islam, is an expansionist movement. Like it wants to
Extend this.
extend it, right? But the difference is it's not through so much bloodshed. So if you look at how Muslims spread Islam, and it's not that skirmishes never happened and wars never happened. It's not like that. But if you look at the principles of war, first you give dawah, right? Second, you allow people to pay jizya and then live as they would, right? And they have liberty amongst themselves and their own communities to practice as they wish. We are not, la ikraha fi din. Allah mentioned in the Quran, you cannot force, Islam down their throat, as opposed to here, if you don't abide by it, then you're either cancelled or you're jailed or much worse, right? Tortured, so on and so forth. So the difference is huge, right? And then also if you do a survey of the death toll in colonialism and all the places that it went and their policies with people. I mean, their policies, there are clear documents for this. I actually have published papers on this. But for example, they call it the requirement. The Spanish, when they were going colonized, they would virtually not see these people as humans. They had no rights, zero rights. And to them, the requirement, I invite you to read it, it's a 2-page document, and they would say that the bloodshed that will cause on you, it's your fault. It's your fault because you didn't accept the church. And they would read it to in Spanish to poor natives, they have no idea what they're saying. Right? So it's like we gave you the message, you didn't accept it, class. Now you have no right to life anymore. So there's a huge difference. A lot of people ask this question here. What's the difference between liberalism and Islamic expansionism? But there's a huge difference in the ethics that we operate with.
So the points that were mentioned are brilliant points that Islam, when it came to a land, it spread adl, right? When you look at the colonial projects, see what happened in North Africa and anywhere the colonial spread, millions of deaths. That's one good point that was made. But the point that I just want to make is that we're not talking against conquest. The idea is against liberalism.
Yeah.
We never said conquest was bad. It's what's being promoted, what's being imposed on the people, right?
They've not got any better.
Just keep that core idea in mind.
Good point.
One is the actually taking God out of the life of people. In Islam, when it conquers, it doesn't conquer with the intention of let's take all the resources for ourselves. Wherever Islam went, the societies flourished, right? Capital of the Muslim Ummah, if you look at the capitals of the Muslim Ummah, it's throughout wherever they conquered. Whereas colonialism, the capitals were always back in the original location. So
And also liberalism tried to erase the identities and cultures of the
Islam doesn't erase the identity or the culture of the people that come there. In fact, other religious societies, they're allowed to live even according to their own religion. And there's an argument to be made that Islam gives more freedom of religion 100%. Than liberalism. But liberalism tries to take a religion and it implements its ideas and ideologies into it and only leaves a superficial name of that religion so that people can think that we're free. Whereas Islam didn't do that.
So going to the next question, this is kind of tied to liberalism. Isn't it prohibited to support homosexuality legally? Some people, even from many aside, would say that it's morally wrong, but they should have the right to do so, and they should have the freedom to do so. So basically, don't support them morally, but support them politically.
Like this type of conversation like this comment is just wrong, No one asked you about your understanding of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution of America. What is their rights as civil people? They're asking you what is the legal Islamic ruling on the matter. You tell them it's haram, it's wrong, it's totally wrong, no one should do it. That's what you say. Why are you discussing civics with this person? You're not in a freaking, history class or something. You're not in school, it's not high school. This is what happens, absurdity of Muslims, unfortunately. Like, obviously we know as Muslims, as US citizens, that people have certain rights in this country. Did you need to talk about it? That's what I'm saying about this absurdity here. We shouldn't say it. You don't have to go around saying this. People already know this reality. But you should fight. This is the thing about what liberalism gives you. Not physically, okay? But show some strength and say this is wrong, okay? Because it was wrong. When was the first gay marriage bill passed in the entire world? They don't know?
Just recently, I guess.
No, yeah. December 21st, 2000. I think it was in Finland or Sweden or something. 2000. Literally 20 years ago they realized that this is something that maybe it's a right for humans to have. Okay? You fight against it. And you say it's wrong. Maybe one day Allah will bring haqq back, inshallah. But you should not submit and just say it's whatever. People have fought for their rights and stuff like that. That's what you learn from America. You're the rebel, right? You're the Luke Skywalker. Right? You're supposed to fight against the whatever, right? And so fight against Darth Vader and get the thing done, inshallah.
When there's Christians and Jews that are still fighting against it, then why are Muslims jumping to the front to promote it? Stand with those who are fighting against it. There is an opposition to it, right?
How do you respond?
Let's complete the question first. Yeah,
No, good. That's all I wanted to say. That Muslims should be the last ones because this is something very clear for us. They still have a debate over it. We don't have a debate over it. To us, it's clear. So why should we be the last ones to stand against it? Those who are standing against it, just join forces with them. Why are we saying we need to join forces with the other side?
And also, in a democracy, we don't need, just because they say separation of church and state, we don't, if you get the majority on whatever basis with you, you can pass, you can get things passed in your favor. So just start on the right foundation and work towards it. Even if it takes time, you'll get there eventually. You have to build up support and it'll get there. So, yes, brother, you're asking a question.
Just along with what you were saying, with other, other jobs are still, debating against this. There's also a hadith that said that there will come a time where you might need to work with specifically Rome to go against another idea, a third idea. Is that time coming?
eschatology.
Maybe we can take these ones. This is a good question.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say that this specific issue is what the hadith is referring to, but from that hadith we can understand at least the point that it is okay to ally with them on issues of common interest.
Them meaning the Christians.
Them meaning the Christians, right? So if they are fighting for something that our deen says, so we fight for what our deen says, not necessarily because we want to support them, but this is what our deen says. They're supporting us really.
Good one.
So next question, how do we raise families in a liberal society? How do we de-liberalize them?
You have, whoever asked this question, You're in a liberal country, why are you asking me? You have freedom, do what you want. Like literally do what you want. Raise your family the way you want to. You have so much control. You can control when the Wi-Fi is on in the house, you can turn off the Wi-Fi, you can decide what to watch, what not to watch. You can decide to keep your kids in public school or homeschool them. You have such freedom here. How are you even asking these questions, right? Ajib, right? Think about it. You have such liberty in this country to do what you want, raise your kids the way you want to. People in this country that are living straight up off grid like Amish, and they can do it and they're functioning. My thing is that, look, you know who your children are, you know your children better than anyone because they're your children. Now you know what is good or harmful for them, now you do the right thing and make sure to save their deen, okay? Now my thing is that kids have to understand, technology, etc. is very harmful, detrimental for children, right? You and I are already addicted as adults. What's going to happen to a child? So understand, there is control for technology, number one. And number two is, inshallah, you have to show that Islam is alive at home. There are only two places in America where a kid will find Islam. One is in the Masjid of Allah Ta'ala, the other one is in the Muslim house. Okay, now I remind everyone, if you don't show them Islam at home, it doesn't matter what they learn in the masjid because they'll think that my parents don't really practice deen. And so this is going to cause a big hypocritical feeling in the kid's heart that this is what's happening in my life. So inshallah, be as good Muslims as you can. Show everything inshallah, all Islam. Enter this one completely. If you practice inshallah fully, then inshallah Allah will keep your children safe. Inshallah.
Also, just to note that the final session will be on decolonialization. We'll bring a case study, and he'll be going through how we can actually function in a liberal society decolonial.
I'll just say this last thing and then we'll break for the salah. We have 10 minutes inshallah, or less than 10 minutes. The last thing I want to say, the question was that how do we, train our kids, how do we protect our families from this liberalization and all of that? Connect them to the traditional ulama, connect them to the masajid, and bring them to Project Ihya.
Just basically find the most decolonialized people and spend time with them.
Oh, we're supposed to leave that for the end. You spoiled it for them.
We're ready for 40 days.
Jazakumullah khair, inshallah. So we'll break for salah. If anyone has to do wudu or freshen up, let your joints move around before the next grind, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.